Today is Wednesday, June 16th, and this is Headers and Footers, the brand new UEFA Euro 2020 show from the Toronto Star. I'm Brendan Dunlop. Look, I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off, okay? Mi dispiace, Italian supporters. I'm sorry. Really, I am. This Spro is for you. Oh, that is good. You got to do it on the stovetop. Look, I had this Azzurri side all wrong. I'll admit it. I looked at Roberto Mancini's team and thought, this is a side that lacks the standout names that we're used to seeing Italy bring to a major tournament. Yes, this side has loads of talent with several players coming off of stellar Serie A seasons. And having never scored 3 goals in a single match at the Euros, they've now gone out and won 3-0 in their opening 2 games. And they've kept 10 straight clean sheets. This Azzurri side is for real. And I mean, even when Giorgio Chiellini came out in the first half with what they're calling a hamstring strain. If he misses considerable time, that will change the picture here. But it looks like that might not be the case. A bit of proactive load management, perhaps. Even when he came out, Switzerland never looked like they had a chance of penetrating that Italian back line. And look, I said that Italy lacked big names that we're used to seeing. I never said that they lacked big game players. Manuel Locatelli was one of the best midfielders in the Italian Serie A this season. So his 2-goal performance wouldn't have come as a surprise for anyone who was watching Sassuolo all year long. But how many of you are fitting Sassuolo into your match viewing weekend? Great to see Ciro Immobile back on the score sheet for his country. He was so unfairly made the scapegoat when Italy failed to qualify for the World Cup in Russia 3 years ago. Now, part of my hesitation to call Italy pre-tournament favorites and to see them that way, sometimes good attacking players, which Roberto Mancini was through the 80s and 90s, become rather and surprisingly defensive managers. Think Marco van Basten. When he took over the Netherlands, he destroyed the progression, leaving out the older attacking veterans ahead of the 2006 World Cup. And again, in 2008, the Dutch should have been great, and they were a mess. Now, it's not all his fault, but the Dutch missed an entire generation of elite players. I'm not saying I thought that was this period that Italy's in. Certainly not. But international management, it is very, very different from managing a club team that has world-class talent you can see day in and day out and put the work in. There isn't the time in international soccer to scheme and plot and evolve your team identity like many coaches want to do. Italy played Switzerland off the park on Wednesday, which is exactly what they did to Turkey on Friday. This Italian team is so fun to watch. And they're nowhere near their best yet. How scary is that? There isn't a nation at Euro 2020 that would want to come up against Italy in the knockout stage right now. Not one. The big name player for Switzerland is Xherdan Shaqiri. And in the past, he's carried his country. But he hasn't played all that well for Liverpool for a while now. And he just doesn't look like he's the man capable of carrying his nation against the better sides in Europe anymore. Turkey were picked by a lot of people to be one of the better sides at this tournament. They were everybody's dark horse, but they had no answer for Wales' 2 big names on Wednesday. Yes, Gareth Bale missed that penalty, and for a few minutes after, it looked like he wouldn't be able to let it go in the match. But the often criticized, very well-paid frontman showed just how capable he is when playing for Australia. I mean, playing for Norwich. I mean, Wales. Honestly. Those kits. There are few away strips that can hold a candle to the home kit, and that red Wales kit with the yellow accents, that is one of the better ones out there. My guest tonight is one of the hardest working guys in the soccer media and one of the most entertaining, as you'll hear. And if you're watching from south of the border, you've seen a lot of him on CBS's expanding soccer coverage during the pandemic. The host of the Que Golaso podcast, Luis Miguel Echegaray. Luis, I'm very excited to talk to you, my man. Thank you for making the time on my Toronto Star show. I know you've got a lot of time for Turkey. I listened to you on Que Golaso with Jimmy Conrad talking about Turkey being the dark horses. You were so excited after 2 games. What do you think of them now?
Well, I'm going to get my jacket, Brandon, and grab a taxi because I'm ready to go home. This is absolutely terrible. They've completely disappointed me. I'm so upset. Turkey, as you mentioned, were a dark horse for me, and they have really disappointed. And, you know, aside from the loss against Wales, which I'm sure we'll get to in a minute, my friend, Italy, obviously destroying them in the first game was very impressive. Obviously, the renaissance from the Italian side. But Turkey, man, they did everything that was the opposite to how they got here in the first place. They were was so passive, very conventional. It was very, very disappointed. And anybody that wanted Turkey to do well because of being a dark horse, they had justification for it. They got 4 points out of France in the qualifiers. They tied against Germany. They destroyed the Netherlands. You thought, wow, this is going to be a good team. And they've completely fallen flat. So I'm going to grab my taxi, Brendan, and I'm just going to go home because I was so wrong on Turkey, sad to say.
Well, you're in New York. I think it's still difficult to get a taxi in New York City, regardless of there being a global pandemic. But you mentioned there in qualifying how good they looked. I mean, their strong point, and the reason I think a lot of people back them as a dark horse, they conceded just 3 goals in 10 qualifying matches. They've conceded 5 in 2 games here, and that defense looks absolutely broken. Didn't matter what changes Gunesh made.
Yeah, and the game against Wales, I mean, when you roll back the tape, Wales, I mean, Gareth Bale and Aaron Ramsey was like, old school Ronaldinho and Ronaldo phenomenal, just doing their thing. It was like kid and play, just like dancing all over the place, completely showing, as you mentioned, just how bad they were at the back. The only saving grace for Turkey were their set pieces, and Yilmaz couldn't make it happen. Fair play to Wales, honestly, because they also played in Baku in Azerbaijan, which is actually a neighboring, a friendly nation to Turkey. And you thought that the Turkish contingency were going to go behind and become the 12th man for the Turkish side. But Wales really delivered. Gareth Bale and Aaron Ramsey were fantastic. Daniel James, too, also could have, created a third chance for them. But listen, I have no words because Turkey really, really disappointed me.
30,000 fans in that stadium. I think maybe only 500 were Welsh, and I might be inflating that number a little bit. So the Turks,
which is half of Wales, right? Which is half of Wales anyway.
But hey, if you look at this tournament, I mean, home advantage has not been an advantage at all. Yeah. Most of the hosts have lost, and then Spain getting the draw, that would feel like an L for the Spanish. So home advantage really hasn't been the factor that I thought it would be.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And honestly, it's kind of the narrative that we've been getting used to this last 12, 14 months since the pandemic. And when you look at club domestic competition, really home advantage doesn't mean anything because these teams are now so used to playing away from home, it doesn't really matter. And because it's not a full, complete packed stadium, albeit some nations are doing that almost full capacity, it still doesn't matter. These teams are well prepared mentally and physically to deliver even when they play away from home.
You mentioned Gareth Bale and Aaron Ramsey. I thought they were both exceptional. I mean, Bale's penalty miss was horrendous. It's going to take a few rounds out on the golf course, I think, for him to shoot that out of his mind. Don't you think?
Yeah, he was definitely going for the 18th there instead of trying to put one in the top left.
Yeah, it would have been a great drive, that shot, but not a great penalty. But I really thought that he and Aaron Ramsey were at their best. And really for Wales to replicate anything like we saw a few years ago, and not to say that they're going to ride their way to the semifinals again, but it's got to be through those two guys. So Welsh supporters will be very happy after that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Gareth Bale was doing way more than just being a wide player, trying to come in from he was really creating so many chances. And Aaron Ramsey could have had a hat trick, to be quite honest. And, very happy for him after going through injury situations with Juventus, of course. And I think that this is going to be, as you mentioned, a real confidence booster. I mean, getting this win is going to be very, very big. So very happy for them.
Where did Turkey go from here? It all kicked off at the end there. Burak Yilmaz, I thought, in the first game, and then again today, just reminded me a lot of Toronto FC's Jermaine Defoe, his short season in Toronto, where he just all the class in the world, but the team around him, when they wasn't able to support him, was making endless mistakes. And then in the end, he makes mistakes.
Yeah, listen, I got to be honest. I think that obviously the players that you see on the pitch, they disappoint you in many ways, but I'm going to really put the main blame on the managing side of things, because again, I'll go back to the first game against Italy. They were so passive, too passive. In fact, so passive that I thought that for many moments of that game, they were like, look, Italy, we know that you're at home. We know that you're feeling good. We'll give you this game. And I really thought I was going to see a 180 today, and I didn't. So honestly, the last game of the group stage, you're not going to get out of, you're not going to make it to the knockout stage. You have 0 points right now. Just go for it. Just go all out. Give them something. Give your fans something. Completely rely on your superstars, Çalhanoğlu, etc., Burak Yilmaz as well, who had a very good season with Lille, and just try and attack. And if you concede, you concede. But at the very least, give it your all. If you sit and rely on the counter like you've tried to be doing for the last 2 games, you're not going to get anything out of it. Just go for it and give your fans at least something to cheer on as you leave Euro 2020.
Hey, I've really enjoyed sitting on the couch, especially yesterday, seeing the group of death. You and I have had some great exchanges over Cristiano Ronaldo over the time on Twitter. And I mean, the GOAT, The greatest of all time? I know that Portugal weren't the strongest for 80 minutes in that match, but when they needed to take over, they did. And no surprise, Ronaldo was the man.
No, absolutely. Listen, Cristiano Ronaldo probably watched Argentina play the night before and Lionel Messi's free kick, and it probably inspired him to do it in that 8-minute blitz when Portugal took over Hungary. Ronaldo, as you mentioned, did his thing, scored a brace, became European Championships all-time scorer, passing Michel Platini, 3 away from Ali Daei, 106 goals, only 3 from the male international top scorer ever. So you can't deny 36 years old. This is a player that I think that honestly can keep going after 40 years old. That's both excites me and depresses me at the same time, just how amazing athletically he is. And, you can't deny just how much of a superstar he is. And taking in mind that he went through a rough patch with Juventus this season, of course, them not winning Scudetto, leaving the Champions League. So we'll see what happens. There's no doubt in my mind that he'll, at the very least, tie Ali Daei in this European Championship. And surely he'll pass it. There's still 2 games left in the group stages and the knockout. So, but yeah, Cristiano Ronaldo, an unbelievable player, and dropping Coca-Cola's value as well as Hungary's as well.
Unbelievable. I love that you referenced that it excites you and depresses you at the same time. How do you explain to non-soccer people what we're living through right now with Messi and Ronaldo at their best at the same time in history?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Listen, if you're not a soccer fan and, but you are an NBA fan and you talk about the comparisons of Michael Jordan and LeBron James, imagine both of them in their prime playing at the same time. That's the best way that I can describe it. I think that when we look back, and because of the digital world that we live in, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, we forget. We have goldfish memories, and we forget just how lucky we are to see 2 incredible athletes, not just good, not just great, but in the top 5 best ever. The things that these 2 have produced are remarkable. And when they leave, it's going to really hit us because they are tremendous, tremendous athletes. We've talked about Cristiano Ronaldo's statistics, but Lionel Messi is very close on beating Pele's. I think he's already done it. There's obviously the dispute with Pele's camp in terms of, how many goals he scored for a single club. Obviously, he's still looking for a World Cup. He's still looking for a Copa America. But they are just 2 incredible stars at the same time. And when they leave, right, the mantle will pass obviously to Erling Haaland, Kylian Mbappe, etc. But still, we are so lucky to see them play at the same time for so many years.
Also lucky to have the Euros and Copa on at the exact same time. I haven't been able to dine on as much Copa as I would like. I haven't seen your Peru yet, but a quick prediction on Copa, how that'll finish in Brazil?
Yeah, Copa America, obviously a very conflicting issue because it started that it was meant to be in Colombia and Argentina, and that obviously didn't happen because of COVID and socially political issues. And now it's going to Brazil against the backdrop of so many things. But even so, we have Copa America, as you mentioned. My Peru play Brazil on Thursday night, and it's a little bit different of a format, Brendan, because there's no guest nation. So it's only the CONMEBOL nation. So it's 2 groups, both made of 5, and 4 go to the knockout stages. So you pretty much have to try to not make it to the knockout stages. So we'll see what happens. Look, my money is on Brazil. They just have a real deep squad. They know their identity under coach Chiche. And Argentina obviously is going to be a favorite as well. But I think it's going to be the same players that go through. And if Brazil don't win the whole thing, I would be very surprised. Peru's bringing a rotated squad. Paulo Guerrero is not part of it. Gareca wants to, try some things out. Look out for Gianluca Lapadula, the Italian-Peruvian who plays with Benevento. He's part of it. And also Santiago Ormeño, the Mexican-Peruvian, who's making his debut with Peru. So very interesting. And they're going to be playing against Brazil. But if Brazil don't win this whole thing, I'd be very surprised.
I would be as well. I went to Copa America in 2015 in Chile. It was one of the best trips of my life. It was incredible.
Lucky. You're lucky.
The way you talk about the format here at Copa sounds like the MLS playoffs. Just everybody gets through. Okay, yeah. Quick take is our national sides, the U.S. men's national team and the Canadian men's national team are going to meet in the final stage of CONCACAF qualifying. This was a huge moment for Canadian soccer to book their place for the first time in the final qualifying stages of CONCACAF since 1997. Are we going to see Alphonso Davies and Christian Pulisic in Qatar? I'm starting to think there's a real chance here.
Well, listen, there's a lot of noise on the USMNT, and rightly so. They have so many stars obviously doing their thing, but not enough about your Canadians. You mentioned Alphonso Davies, but we don't talk enough about Jonathan David. I mean, one of the players of CONCACAF right now in Europe. Look what he's done with Lille, etc. I think this is a player, and Canadian soccer from the men's side should be very, very excited about what can come through. So it's very exciting times for Canada. We don't talk about Canada enough, and we should. And I think that we will once the Gold Cup gets going.
Hey, I'm here to talk about it anytime. And with the World Cup being co-hosted by the three CONCACAF giants, come 2026, maybe there's a podcast opportunity, my man.
Hey, same colors as Peru, so I'm with you all the way.
There you go. I love it. I love it. Thank you very much for coming on the show, Luis. Great to chat with you.
Thank you, my friend.
14 massive games for the Canadians men's national team coming up in the final stage of World Cup qualifying. This the first time they've been at this level in CONCACAF since 1997 before trying to qualify for France 98. And with Fonzie and Jonathan David, like Luis mentioned, not to mention Kyle Larin, Atiba still very much involved, Richie Larea, Theo Corbianu, so many others. Look, I'm not saying they're going to do it, but Canada have a real shot at qualifying for Qatar. So pay attention. Don't miss an episode of this show. You can watch it every night on YouTube, subscribe and listen wherever you get your podcasts, and follow me on Twitter and all social media platforms, the same handle, Brendan_Dunlop. I'll give all my soccer takes there. I didn't even get to Sergio Ramos leaving Real Madrid on today's show. No time for it. I hope you're enjoying Euro 2020 as much as I'm enjoying talking with you. Thanks for kicking it with me.